Okay, can you hear me now? Testing, testing. Okay, I think this might have fixed it. All right, can you guys hear me now? Yep, okay, good stuff. Sorry about that. All right, there we go. I didn't have the amplifier on apparently, so I guess. Oh, you know what? My power went out. We've had a couple power issues here, and I think it may have defaulted back to not the 48 volts that it needs to power the mic. So that's probably what it is. All right, how's everyone doing? Silence. I cue you. Oh, who is that's Jeff Dunham, right? Or Durham? Dunham, right? All right, so I need to go through and just take a look at Studio real quick just to make sure we have everything going again. All right, here we go. Content, live, and here we go. Okay, now we're all set. How's everyone doing? Yeah, the ventriloquist. Yeah, I think it's Jeff Dunham. So let's start with the spy, right? So what I've been looking at is this. So we have been chilling out, respecting this trend line, right? So every time it comes up to this like resistance line, it basically bounces off of it. They actually gapped up this day. I think we guys talked about it last week, but wait, Goat says no. No what? You can't hear me, or no before you ask? Oh, you're talking to random, aren't you? You're not sitting on his lap. Yeah, Jeff Dunn. Is it Jeff Dunham? I think it is. I actually saw that guy, and I saw him long ago. But I was gonna say I watched one of his shows. It was pretty good. Aloha vibes. I'm good, man. I know I haven't hung out in a while. I was gonna say so. I moved it to a bi-weekly thing, so I'm gonna do Tuesdays and Thursdays. I know it doesn't cover the market every single night, but it's the agreement I came up with my wife because I was spending a lot of time and she felt like she wasn't getting enough time with me. So this is the compromise we came to: was I'll do it bi-weekly. Done ham. All right. So we've been kind of respecting this, right? They gapped up. They tried to break it above here and then just, it gapped down here, gapped down here. So we have two gaps above us now. And we still have this gap down here from the election cycle. So the question is, how's this going to play out, right? So right now, we're obviously, this was a immediate rejection off of this resistance once they gapped it up, and they just fell right back down. They tried to bring it back into this wedge. It got smacked down, gapped down the next morning, gapped down the next day, and now we're here. They needed to come up because the RSI on this was getting oversold, so they needed a day to kind of chill out on the RSI. RSI, for anyone that doesn't know, is overbought or oversold, just a indicator. But I'm just taking a look at this right now and going, okay, now this wouldn't make sense unless it was to come back up in the next couple days while it's still in the ability to kind of come up, because if we get down towards, like, for example, here, trying to get back up to fill this gap is very unlikely. So the question is, well, everyone's getting super bearish and everyone's, like, do they trick everyone? Everyone's buying puts. Everyone's thinking the market's going to go down in flames. And do they push it back up to close one of these gaps to burn people? That's something that I'm like, wearing headphones. I can only hear you in my left ear. Huh. I don't know how that works. I don't know how I would be able to fix that. Can everyone else hear me in 2 speakers or just 1? You guys let me know. Liam, put the headphone on top of your head, then you could hear it with both ears. Random. Be greedy when others are fearful. Yeah, so I just think this is an interesting point right now because, yeah, I do think at some point we will tag this gap down here. But the question is, if you get down here, then it'd be near impossible to, that would be basically breaking out of this, this channel that we're in right now. So if we were to get down here, for it to go up, it would have to break through resistance, back test, and then go back up, right? But there is a chance right now, just looking at this, that if they were to push it back up while we still are in this, like, kind of like the next couple days into January, if they were to run it up, they could technically close that gap, even hit here by February 1st, and close that gap without having to deal with this huge resistance line that seems to be holding up so far. So I just thought that was interesting because, like, that would mean that we might have a short-term rally between now and February 1st, right? Because that's where basically maybe 2nd or 3rd, but like really it would have to be probably roughly by the beginning of February. Tomorrow isn't bearish according to Blake Young. It's skewed bullish. Yeah, I mean, it would make sense to me because everyone's sitting here going, oh, well, this thing's going to go back down. Like it's following this perfect pattern. So if I'm noticing this and other people are noticing this, what would make sense? Well, it could make sense to go back up, close these gaps, and then you can safely head down again. So just something to think about. I mean, I'm not throwing it out, but, got to come up with some knee slappers. You do a good job, Random. You do a good job. So I'm just curious, like, we got 12 people in here. What do you guys think? Because, like, this is, to me, I'm looking at this, like, you had a nice rejection, but now we're sitting here, and it would make sense before February that if you had a short-term rally, you could come up and close this thing over at, like, 396 area. So you guys tell me, like, I mean, this gap would be the immediate one. It wouldn't probably take that much to just kind of burn people's puts and just have this thing go back up temporarily. This is where I would be probably. It's going to go one of two ways. I've got September puts right now. That's what I put some of my money on back when it was up here. So when we gapped up here, I bought September puts for 415 and also 365, which is down here. Down here. There it is. So this is where my puts are. I bought some out of the money and I bought some in the money. The in the money ones I sold when it was here. And then I have now the 365 ones, which I bought back up here. So I think long term, in the next couple months, it's still going to go down. We've got more room to fall. But in the short term, this is starting to make me think maybe there could be a chance for these two gaps closed before February. So, be interesting. Anyone optimistic about ATER? Not in the immediate term. So I can do this. Let me pull up ATER real quick. Okay. So here we go. So we've broken through like pretty much the $1, right? We've fallen. This is kind of what I predicted a couple weeks ago. I told everyone that I was waiting to average down. And, some people bought back when it was like 1, when it was consolidating. I said I thought because of what was happening on the SPY, that Ethereum's going to get dragged down with the market. That's why I held off when this thing's been barcoding. I've just been holding off because I knew if the SPY is going to drop another like 15%, Ethereum's going to go down with it. So we broke it through all supports. There is still a support at we can pull it up on the Discord. Hold on a second. Let me pull it up real quick. Discord. I'll boot you guys up. All right. So, let me pull up our Discord real quick, and we can do ATER chat. Looks like some people are actually still talking about it. I'm going to do ATER TA real quick. Looks like 86 cents is supposed to be support. We finished today. What did we finish today at? 83. So we lost that. We'll see what happens tomorrow. But basically, I'm expecting this thing to go down with the market. So if the market keeps going down, we could see in the 70s. That's kind of what I called out, was the 70s to 80s is where I thought that we might catch support around like maybe like 75 cents or 70 cents. Because at that point, let me see. Pull up the calculator so you guys can take a look at this. Okay. And I will pull up, let's pull up ATER on here. Oops. Okay, so we've got 79. Here we go. 79, 78000, right? And we have right now, if we hit, let's say 75 cents, right? That means we would have a market cap of just under 60 million at that point, right? So if we pull up here and go to holdings, filings, and we were pulling up the financials, right? And we take a look at our new total assets. We have 161 million listed as total assets, right? And we have technically right now 62 million for liabilities. So we're under, obviously, as far as like shareholder equity, right? You would have basically 100 million. We're under that right now. So it's one of those things where if we're a 60 million market cap at, let me just see what we are right now. What's our market cap today? Our market cap 73 million today at closing. So, I mean, if we were to fall much further than this, it's going to be, well, let's see where cash is, because we know that cash is one of the most critical pieces that we're missing on Ethereum. They listed this. We also know they sold another 20 million. So this was going to be roughly about 45. We don't know what they paid on the company they acquired. So, and they have to keep at least 15 million in here or they violate the debt covenant, which means they would give up more shares as well. So let's take 15 million out of that. So if we had 45 million, we'll take out the 15, right? And let's take out, I don't know, like 6 million for the possible acquisition they made. So, I mean, this is where I think people are fine pushing it down because cash is right now one of the worst things for Ethereum because they need cash badly because they're not profitable, so they're bleeding. The question is, how much more did they save on the liability side, right? So if we were just to roughly pull this out and say we have 45 million, we've got to keep at least 15 million, right, in reserves. And then let's say we paid 6 million. I'm just ballparking 6 million. That means we'd have about 24 million remaining right now in cash, roughly somewhere in that ballpark. So, that would last us a couple more quarters, roughly. So, it's not great right now. What I'd like to see though is on the next earnings in March, what we need to find out is how much did they slow the bleed on the liability side, because the cash burn right now, we need to see the cash burn come down on the Tyrion. So they're estimating they're burning through about 6 million, 6.5 million a quarter, right? So that would be slightly less than a year left of cash. It's basically like 3/4 of a year left of cash as of right now. They think we have 20 million. I said 24, but we don't know how much they paid on the acquisition. So there you go. So is there anything bullish? Not really for Tyrion. We're just going to have to wait until essentially March to see what these earnings are. And at that point, we can get a better sense of where we are. Now, in March, could we be sitting here in this range, anywhere between basically, let's say 1 and, we'll say 50 cents? Sure. That's like a range that it could trade in temporarily, or it's going to push down hard and then kind of come back up. We do know, though, the warrants are unlockable in March. So if anything was to go off, right? So say Tyrion looks better on the balance sheet in March. What I'd be interested in seeing is, we know Armistice holds these warrants right here, right? So Armistice owns these ones and these ones. They own them at 320, and they owe them at they bought them for 190, and they have an exercise price of $2, right? So the stock must be higher than $2 at this point for Armistice to get these 10.5 million shares. So right now, I don't think you guys keep bringing up reverse splits. Reverse splits is basically a last resort, and you have to be. I don't know why this has been like planted in the Tyrion chat. I think it's mainly a couple of people that keep just saying it over and over again. This is a last resort. A reverse split is obviously not great because it reduces the amount of shares that you own, because essentially what they're doing is, if we do, for example, like a 4-to-1 split, for every 4 shares you have, you now have 1 share at a higher share price. And that's how you get basically to go above $1 so you can comply with, the SEC rules, or the New York Stock Exchange rules, basically, that you have to be above $1. But it takes a while to actually delist. So if you get a warning for delisting, right? So we've been below $1 now for like 4 days, right? And I know that sounds like strange, but if you actually look, we were above $1 here. We didn't lose $1 until basically right here. So 1, 2, 3, this is our 4th day under. At 30 days, that's when they issue you like hey, you need to fix something and we need to say a plan. But you can file for like a year almost, just appeals and, work it out with the SEC that like, okay, we'll figure out something with a reverse split. But the second it touches above $1 again, it restarts the clock. So like, this is something that I don't see happening until later in the process, and this is going to be a thing. But you don't just reverse split to reverse split. So I think this is one of those things where, yes, is a reverse split possible? Sure. It's absolutely possible. But at the same time, it takes a while. Like, look at a bunch of tickers. Like, let's take a look at, for example, MULN. Right? MULN has been sub $1 since back in July. They still haven't reverse split. So here's $1, right? So literally since this day right here, July 26, MULN has been sub $1. You get 30 days. So after 30 days, they would have gotten a warning here, and they're still down here. So like, this is not something that's like, oh, you get a bunch of time. Yeah, people, I think in that chat, I'm still not convinced that some people aren't, plants. because they seem to know a whole lot of information, but yet they're claiming to just have gotten swept up in the, it will be delisted. Sungwoon Kim, it will be delisted. It takes 30 days. You get a warning after 30 days. So we've been on it for 4 days right now. At 30 days, you have to go to the New York Stock Exchange and say, this is our plan for this stock, right? So even if it falls down here, it takes literally like, it takes a while. Like, it can take, what are some of the other tickers that are really low right now that people have been talking about? They just did a reverse split here, right? So these guys had been sub $1 since, let's see, they lost it here, they gained it back here, April. And they just did a reverse split in December. So it took them literally from April until mid-December to actually go through a reverse split. So I'm just saying that Ethereum's got a lot of time before that's even like a thing. It's better to make a new ticker than reverse split. I mean, it all depends on what you're looking at and the time horizon as well. Isn't the reverse split on CEI tomorrow? It could be. It very well could be. I'm not tracking that one, but I was going to say, I know I heard that they were doing a reverse split. I just didn't look at when the execution date is going to be. So my point is, you guys keep talking about reverse splits. We've only been on like sub 1 for 4 straight days. So it's going to take a lot longer. If we do this right now, do the math on it, it took CEI, who's in much worse financial shape than Ethereum, because they've literally they sold off all their valuable assets, so they have nothing left. So it took them from April until mid-December. So that's a while. What are your thoughts on them not disclosing the health and wellness brand? So we actually had a conversation about this already. This is what I think is interesting. Let me just grab some water. Hold on a second. Okay. So the health and wellness company they acquired, they're probably not disclosing it for actual strategic reasons, right? So I talked to a guy who basically works in the space. I'm not going to throw any names, but he doesn't work for Wall Street, but he works in basically mergers and acquisitions. And what he said essentially was this. He goes, a lot of these companies don't want to give up their competitive advantage, right? So if you disclose who you bought, your competitors can try to undercut you in that space to try to stay relevant, because you're going to buy up market share of, everything that's in there. So you may now own 60% of the market share for that particular space. Let's pretend it has to do with Squatta Potty, right? So, because that would technically fall under health and wellness. And they already said that they did not buy an essential oil company. So they now have a thing where they're going, okay, we have maybe 50, 60% of the market share of this particular type of item. Your competitors are going to get worried and go, okay, well, what are we supposed to do with this? Maybe we need to lower our prices. So if you disclose what you bought, they know exactly who to target and who they need to undercut. So they may not be telling us or anyone else because they want to keep it for strategic reasons, that they don't want to disclose what the brand is, which makes sense. So I don't really personally care that they haven't disclosed that, as long as they're hopefully grabbing up market share and selling through stuff, because that's what they need to do. They said they were discounting stuff. They wanted to get sales going through. All the stuff was going to be unprofitable because they bought it during the shipping crisis. So all the inventory they're trying to sell through, once they sell through it, they can order the new product from China. It will be shipped over to the States. And then at that point, that's where, the new stuff into next year will be hopefully a lot more profitable than what they were doing, which was just bleeding. Because say, for example, they pay a normal shipping rate, you know, $5,000 a container, versus when they sat there and they were going through and saying, oh, well, we're having to pay $25,000 a container, and they basically were just bleeding out any profit they have. All that all that inventory is just sitting on shelves, also costing them money. And it's also unprofitable when they sell it. So like for them, they need to just sell through all this stuff, and they need to basically get to a point where they sold through the stuff. They have new inventory that when they sell it, they actually make some money back. So that's kind of where Tyrion is. They need to sell through the new product. And that's where I think most people need to focus on. Like, you think they bought more of the coffee enema brands. God, I hope they didn't. Like, Tyrion's made some really, like, piss poor judgment, in my opinion, like on some of their purchases. Like, I know at the time they were probably looking at margins being like, oh, this is fine, but like they were trying to grow just by buying companies, and they were overpaying for them. And then basically the shipping crisis happened, and they're bleeding, and then they violated a debt covenant, which made them give up more shares and equity, and it's just been a nightmare for Tyrion. So this is where, okay, you have an opportunity this year. Even if we go into a recession, at least your stuff is going to be hopefully better margins, and they can turn things around. Because shorts are going to be in this until they essentially, until they show that they can actually make money. And at that point, that's on management to prove that. So we're going to find out real quick what happens with that, because in the long run, if Tyrion can actually start showing that they're turning around, slowing the bleed, the inventory will help. If they get, the cheaper inventory and are selling through at better margins, that will help the balance sheet. They've already written off all the goodwill. We showed that before. They basically just wrote down all the goodwill. So all the goodwill that we had here is now, this is basically the raw and the honest balance sheet that you're looking at, which is, you have cash, you have accounts receivable, you've got your inventory, which is still sitting there. They need to sell through this, prepaid assets, and then the property and equipment basically has been written down. And here's more goodwill that they're just writing off, basically. So all this is going to be like the next quarter. We should see a very interesting balance sheet from there on out. So, okay. I saw somebody wanted to talk about, what was the ticker you asked about? This is one I haven't looked at. I know people were talking about it. COSM. Cosmos Holdings. They're pharmaceutical, right? Let's see. They acquire, develop commercial products that improve patients' lives and outcomes. Okay. What do they sell? Generic. So they're selling generic pharmaceuticals. Okay. So that's their business model, is they sell generic pharmaceuticals. So basically what happens when somebody's patent goes up, these guys are able to come in and copy that and then put the cheaper brand on the shelf. All right. All right, so let's take a look. So right now it says overall risk is a medium. They still have the ability to offer the medium on the shelf, which means down here you have a shelf. And for anyone that's wondering, basically, a shelf is basically they assign amount that with the SEC that they're allowed to raise, and then what they do is they pull out of this in different things. What they might do an ATM, they might do a private placement, all sorts of things to raise money. So there you go. So these guys just did the, let's see, short interest percentage of the float is 321%. According to FINRA. Okay, let's take a look. Let me log into Fintel real quick. But I need to make sure I don't have to show my name. Give me a second. All right, so Cosmos, right? Okay, we'll throw it here. Cosmos Health, right? And we'll take a look at short interest real quick. Short interest percentage of the float. So that number, I'm guessing, has not been adjusted, right? They basically reduced the amount of shares, but So here's what I want to kind of let you guys know. From what I've been learning about a lot of this is this stuff is imperfect. And let's take a look at Ortex as well. So our data is crap compared to most places, right? Compared to like Wall Street, who has, you know, the closest thing you can have to like a legit thing, right? So now we have 3 million shares outstanding. Is that what they're saying? Okay, so they did the reverse split. Insiders have been buying over the last 3 months, right? So they bought 1.5 million shares. Who was the one that did it? It was whoever this is. Chairman of the board, CEO. I don't know how to say his name. It's a Jokas Gringo. I don't know. Whatever that is. He bought it 3 months ago, right? So he bought back here on October 20th. So if you look at the share price, roughly he bought 12.5 million, 12.5 million, no, it's 12.5 million shares maybe? $1.5 million worth of, yeah. So he already holds apparently back then. So this is my point, right? So look at these numbers that we're looking at. So they're saying shares outstanding now is only 3.35 million, right? But they haven't updated the like reverse split adjusted numbers to anything else. So my wonder is this: did they basically reduce the amount of shares that are like sitting out there, but they didn't fix any of the other stuff? That's my only worry. Is Anon's name is SpongeBob SquarePants. All right. So my only worry is that we have bad information. Semper Fi Beach, Semper Fi. So take a look at this. Let's pull up, right? We'll go back into that. Where's the actual float, though? I want to see the float. Overview, does that show the float? Or shares outstanding? You see the borrow rate's up. Does anyone know what the split was offhand? So I don't have to like look it up. Does anyone know if it was like a 4-to-1, a 25-to-1, whatever it was? Anyone have any idea? I can look it up, but I just was hoping somebody was gonna. $25-to-1. Okay, so it was a 25-to-1 reverse split, right? So if you had, for example, short float, they're saying was, what were the numbers prior? Shares outstanding were, let's say it was 321 million. Let's see if those numbers work out. So if you had a 321 74000 divided by 25. That would mean the shares outstanding went down to basically about 13 million. Right? So let's take a look and see how that works out. They're saying that the shares outstanding is only 3.35 million. I don't think that's right. This is where it gets annoying. All right. Let's find Does anyone know what the shares outstanding were prior? Because it was posted in the chat. Which chat? Main trading room floor? Tell me where I'm looking. I'm just trying to figure out what the shares outstanding before is, because I don't believe some of these numbers I'm looking at. I don't think it went down to 3.35 million. Okay, let's see. Just catching up. The World of Izzy says millionaires are made on HIT, Baby F, and MP. Mark me text. I'm always wrong. All right, random. Where am I seeing? Where am I seeing the prior numbers? Because this is one of those, I need to make sure there's some accurate information out there. And I don't think this is correct. Other people have been performing DD and said the short interest is more consistent with 13%. Yeah, I mean, let's just take a look at what they're saying on this. All right. So they're saying that the short interest is about 20% of the free float here. But I don't think their free float is correct. So that's where I'm like, this is saying that there's only 2 million shares shorted against this. Like, you were asking what type of split. It was, sorry. Yeah, it was 25-1. I'm talking about the shares outstanding now, though. That's what I need to find out, because, all right, let's just type in some shares outstanding. All right, so let's take a look and see. So they're saying shares outstanding is 7 million right here, 7.15. Ortex is telling us that the shares outstanding is 3.35 million. So we have two different numbers right there. Yeah, we need to find more. Shares outstanding. Oops, we need an M at the end. Let's look at these guys are saying 1 million shares outstanding. We've looked at 4 different things. Every one of them is different, which is not great. Okay. Dirty sent me this. Split history. Has a 1 split. 1 for 10 reverse split. Does it say shares outstanding, though? This is old, though. Isn't this? That's back in 2017. So this isn't right. That says 2017. So I don't think that's right. They may not have updated it. This is why we can't have nice things for retail, right? Like, we should have adjusted numbers by now, right? Is it because they haven't done it? That's why nobody has. Shares outstanding. Let's go to another place. Market Watch has it at 7 million. That's 2 for 7 million. What's Barron's got? Barron's has got 7 million. They've got 10 or 9.98, 7.15. All right. My question is this. How many of you are in this play that are listening to the stream? If you are, can you guys tell me what the shares outstanding were prior to the split that's going to be happening or has happened? It's happening tomorrow, right? Anyone? Bueller? $26. Okay, so 26 million, right? And they're doing a 25-1. They've already done the split, right? Because that's why the share price is not. Yeah, split already occurred. So the ticker went from. But if it was a 25-1 split, that would have meant that and it's now roughly around 10 million. Oh, the kids are jumping on the tickers again. So they're saying 17 million. They're saying 25. They're saying 7. I don't know. Are these adjusted? Like some of the numbers have been changed already. The split happened unannounced last Friday. Okay. So we should have roughly 1 million if it was 26, right? So all of a sudden you go from 26 million and then you divide that by 25, you would have 1 point something million for the shares outstanding. Like, these guys are going to end up on Reg Show. You can already. So was this Friday? I would think they covered a lot on this day. I mean, you literally went from, I know the split happened. This is December 16th, which would have been, they're already on Reg Show. Yeah, I was going to say, I can't imagine. So the 16th was this day, right? So they did a reverse split, 25-1. What did they start out at? So now we got to do the math. All right, hold on a second. If it's on Reg Show, then it should show up here. If I go to Shorts and I pull up, yeah. See, I'm worried about this. They may have covered a good amount here on this run up. Now, it's still very much possible that, are they saying that they're now in, it says they're no longer on the threshold list. I'm just reading through. Let's see. So as of basically this day, it's saying that they're off the threshold list, which means that they must have covered a good amount on this day. I mean, that's a pretty big move. I mean, the range on this was basically like What is that? Roughly $4. Is that right? It, 385, and it moved all the way up to 24. Yeah, I mean, it looks like they must have covered, right? So shorts would have covered on the day of the reverse split, and then just it looks like they're off the threshold. Now, the question is, can they keep the pressure on? So if you can convince a bunch of people when you only have 1 million shares to keep piling on, then yeah. But if not, they're just going to push down the price again, which it looks like they're trying to do. Let's take a look at that. I mean, the cost to borrow is high, and there's still shares available. I mean, they're saying they think 20% of the float now for Ortex. Yeah, I mean, all right. So I guess I have a question for you guys. So for those of you that were in this play or still are in this play, when this thing moved up to $24, is there a reason why people didn't exit? Valley Suns, yes. So with reverse splits, they can help because basically you're reducing the amount of shares, right? So, for example, you would take everything and you would divide it by whatever your reverse split would be. But that also goes for the short interest as well. So if they have, 10 million shares, I guess sold short, and then they do a reverse split of, let's say, 10, right? A 10 to 1. The shorts also, their position shrinks down. But at the same time, a lot of these squeezes with low floats happen because if just a sheer amount of retail comes in, Robinhood turned off the buy and sell. Wait, on Cosmos? Or Cosmos? Yeah. So Robinhood already turned off the buy and sell button. Yeah, these brokers don't want to do this because here's what we've learned about squeezes, right? I had a good idea going into it until I realized that there are no rules. Like, honestly, the rules seem to not apply to these short hedge funds. For example, Ethereum traded over 1.5 billion shares, right? So we're talking about a stock that had, at the time, 60 million shares outstanding, and they traded 1.5 billion shares in a couple of days on a small cap stock that nobody knows. That's not normal, right? So, I reported to the SEC. The SEC called me. I gave my number. I put all the information down, and they were like, "Can you provide information?" I'm like, "Yeah, no problem." So I provided a bunch of information, and then nothing ever happened. And the stock price has gone down, but during that time, that was shady, and there was a bunch of stuff going on. The stock was on Reg Show within, or 2 times within 9 months, and yet the SEC did nothing. It seemed, and what I learned from all this is if the SEC is not going to enforce the rules, that's why this thing was on the Reg Show for so long for this Cosmos, right? Look at these FTDs were spiking into, what are these, almost 1 million shares on a stock that didn't have that big of a float. And then you're sitting here during Reg Show during this huge time frame, right? And what did they do? What did they do, right? Did they enforce the rules and make it go to the moon? No. They basically did a reverse split. People couldn't buy or sell, and now the stock's way back down. They basically allowed hedge funds and other people to trade while retail wasn't allowed to. That's the problem with this. If they enforce the rules, then there'd be a whole bunch of people that would be really, really wealthy from the squeeze community. But they never enforce these rules. So they get out of this stuff all the time. People were able to buy for 60 cents this Friday like an hour before they blocked all buying and selling. Yeah, they already did that to retail, though. They didn't do that for the institutions. So the institutions were able to trade. You guys just weren't. And that's part of the problem, right? Like, this whole thing is not set up for retail to win. It's to basically protect the big institutions. I mean, plain and simple. That's how it's working. Like, people got screwed on MMTLP. People got screwed on GameStop and AMC. Sorry, I need to drink some water. Yeah, like it's not fair, and this is what's happening to us, right? The SEC looked into Ethereum, and they said they needed to do some research, and I've never heard back from them. Like, and at that point, Ethereum's already diluted down at like really, really low prices. Yeah, it's not fair what goes on in this, and the microcap space is just the SEC was too busy watching Pornhub. That's what the report said. The higher ups in the SEC were all on porn sites and doing anything but their actual jobs, and it's infuriating. So yeah, I sympathize. These are just. This is a long time to be on Reg Show. They were on Reg Show, it looks like, from the 16th all the way from October. So they were on for over the 13 days they're supposed to be closing these things out. And it looks like they did everything on the one day that nobody was allowed to. Webull states in its rules that they suspend trading for 1 to 2 days after a split. Yeah, I mean, once again, that didn't keep the institutions, though, from being able to trade. It's just retail. So Webull, all the Apex, anybody that's associated with Apex, I'm sure, was able to basically get shut out of trading, while anyone that was on the smart money side was able to basically trade. And my guess is they covered probably enough to basically get off Reg Show. This is one of those that, if they're smart about it, what they'll do is they'll probably raise cash, right? So they've got cash now, right? And they're not burning a ton, so they've got money sitting there. They priced in the S1, I guess, in September, right? They do have warrants back at 11, and they do have October warrants that they haven't quite gotten, but you could see the stock move. I mean, they also have these right here, another set at 3. I mean, Cosmos could be going on a warrant run to up to 3, and then it's going to get pushed back down. Or it may have already happened. They may have actually started using these, unless they have 6 months. Okay, the exercise price subject to reset during the next 12 months in the reverse. So they've already done the reverse split, so these things may have been not able to be used, where they reset these things. So, or is that what I'm reading? They've already depleted these, and they also have a couple of notes. They've got convertibles, and they also have an ATM registered. So they're going to raise cash, which is why this thing's probably not going to move. Because they're basically raising cash, it looks like. Yeah, some warrants might get amended, but I'm just saying, like, they have an ATM, so they could be raising, you could see it chopping around a bit because they push it up, and then they're basically just raising cash to keep themselves afloat. So I'm not saying it can't squeeze, but now they're saying the short interest has really been reduced down. Like, Dilution Tracker thinks that it only has 2% short interest now, which means that on Friday they must have closed out a ton of the short positions. But when you guys couldn't trade it. So, do you trust the data that they're off Reg Show? Yeah, I do. I mean, you should be able to pull that up. Reg Show threshold list. we should be able to see right here. This is today, right? December, no, that was yesterday. So as of yesterday, they still said they were on it, right? It's still flagged. So maybe Ortex isn't showing it, but it's showing that they're still on reg show. Beyond Meat's on reg show. This is probably a list we should look at to see what ones are ones that are going to have things happen to them pretty soon. CNET. Beyond Meat's interesting. Let's take a look at that too, just for fun. What is it? Beyond. They don't have anything on here, but their short interest is like 42%. Toots on a bunch. How many shares outstanding do you think they have? All their numbers were down, though. 4 of those plays on the threshold I've profited from. Yeah, good. That's what you want. So here's the deal, right? So these guys I know had spiked up hugely. Now we're kind of sitting down here, we're consolidating. But it's interesting something this big is on the reg show. Because normally you don't see that. Let's try statistics. So shares outstanding 63 million. I mean, this would be one to watch to see what happens, because this is a company that's about $1 billion market cap. You know, they were pushed up greatly, you know, when they first came out, but all this stuff's down. But at the same time, you've got a lot of the float shorted right now. And yeah, that's interesting. So just, that's it. But right now, going back to Cosmos, they're still on the reg show as of, it looks like, the 19th. Today's the 20th. So I guess tomorrow we'll be able to take a look. Wait a second. This is showing they're not on there. So this one showed that they were. Oops. The NASDAQ showed it was on there, but the exchange did not, for whatever reason. Let's see. All right. That's weird. I mean, so I know this is kind of like off of what we're talking about, but I'm just taking a look at this. So 63 million shares outstanding is still a pretty low float, right? Numbers aren't great, but at the same time, let's say we know that insiders hold roughly, let's say 9%. So if we take 9%, we can get pretty accurate with this. So we have 63.7 million times, we said it was 0.0889, right? So they own, so we take out this, right? So we'll copy that, go back to the 63,740 minus. So that roughly gives you a float of 58 million. So, and we know of that, institutions own 43% of it, right? So if we do the 63,780, right, times, what do we say, 43%? So 0.43. So they own 27 million. So we'll take this number. There we go, minus that, minus, what was it? Where is the 566,486? Oops, I messed that up. I needed one more. All right. Let me go back. So we had 36,354,600 minus, and it was 566,486, right? I need one more 6 in there. 6, 8, 4, 6. There we go. So we have roughly, if you know, we have a 58 million share float. And then after, what we would call the free float would be about 30.6 million shares. That's what's left for the rest of us. We don't know though how many shares retail owns, right? But we also know on top of that, if you have roughly 30 million shares, and you can see they shorted 24 million of those shares so far. So something's going to give there. You know, that looks like something's going to give. Because that's a pretty high amount to be short. Now, my guess is they know something. They know if they've shorted basically the majority of the float, they're confident that they're going to be missing earnings and this thing's going to, you know, go down. That's what I'd say. But, I mean, the fact that they're on Reg Show means that it's very illiquid at this point, right? And that's a pretty big market cap to be illiquid on. So, yeah, that's interesting. All right. Real quick, back to Cosmos. I will do some research tomorrow if I have time, and I will try to crunch out and figure out what the float actually is, because it's hard for me to kind of assess it until I know the actual shares outstanding. But I will tell you this. They are, according to this, still on the Reg Show threshold for at least the NASDAQ, but they are not on it for the New York Stock Exchange. Here's the threshold list. It's not showing up here, right? Let's see. What is this? That's ARCA. But let's do this and maybe do the daily reports. We're not on the right thing, are we? That's not necessarily a bad thing, Macaulay Flower Culkin. It may actually not be a bad thing. because options, they're able to hide short interest in them. With just plain old shares, it's really hard to like hide stuff and suppress the price when they don't have an extra tool to do it. All right. That's interesting, though. All right, what time is it? Okay, it's only 10:45. We can get through a couple more. Oh, according to the... So including the offer, it will be about 7 million. Okay, so if we have 7 million, let's just pretend the 7.15 million is correct, right? So if we have 7.15 million, right now they're showing... See, this is where I think everything's screwed up. They're only showing 3 million here on Ortex. So that's not going to be correct. So if you were to actually take a look then and say that if this is correct and they are short right here, let's say 500,000 shares. So right there. This would be correct if it was only 3 million shares outstanding. But all of a sudden, if you were to take those numbers, right, and we said that they had, let's see, this is the new float, right? So if you take, for example, 19%, that would be 1 million shares, like 1.3 shares. So that's not correct. Right, so if we were to do this and say 238, like that, right, divided into, oops, key got stuck. All right, it's 6% of the float would be shorted. So that's more probably accurate than this right here. So Ortex has not updated their numbers, is what I can tell you. So Ortex is worthless right now, looking at least this ticker. Close that. Let's see how they did. How did these guys do for tracking? So they're saying short in, okay, so they're saying 7.2 million shares, and they're saying that the, yeah, they haven't, this number is probably wrong. That's what I can tell you. So this number is incorrect. That's the amount, but where is the actual amount of shares shorted? That's rates. Huh. Interesting WEBR still on there because they're getting bought out at a certain price, right? Like it was like 8.15 or something like that, or I just thought that was interesting. I don't think they've closed their short positions though. They're at least not showing it. Where is... Where's Beyond Meat on this? I'm just curious. Let's do a Control F. They have them listed all the way down at 140. In comparison, Let's see, WEBR. Bunch of different tickers. Let's see. Beat, I remember. MicroStrategy, I remember. Phase, I remember. It's funny, you see the same names over and over again. Kirkland's is up there. Why is Kirkland's up there? Is that the same Kirkland's that we're thinking of? Like the one that's associated with Costco? No, they're a retail chain. Interesting. Huh. Okay. But yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say it's a furniture. Home decor, furniture, accessories. Oh, you know what? I think somebody had me buy these guys. Ticker is like KIRK, I think, right? What is the ticker? Kirk. Yeah, I remember somebody had me buy these guys, and I made like 15-20%, and I sold it. Yeah. But they're still listed up here. Let me see how they did since I sold it. Because they had a nice little move up, and I sold like here. Because I was like, that was good enough. It might have been more than that. Maybe I may have sold down here. Like I literally was just like, okay, that was like a small little move. I'm fine with it. Or maybe it was one of these. I'm just trying to remember where I bought this. One of the people on here mentioned it to me, and I bought a small position, and it did make it a little jump, and I'd sold out. Okay. Somebody asked about another ticker. Let me just double check. Is there anything else on here that was interesting? Let's see. INDO's up there again. Wonder. So whose is not on there? So INDO's still on there. Does INDO need cash though? I think they do. Yeah, they need cash. They got about over 2 years. I actually have a couple. They're not burning that much cash, so these notes convertibles are up at $6 conversion price. That one could move again. Oh, let me scroll back up. Somebody was asking about. Where's the ticker that you guys were asking about? ASTS. Okay, ASTS. Oh yeah, I think I started a position in these guys today. They just landed some contract with AT&T, but the stock went down today, I think. And Infinity, Infinite, I'll take a look at those tickers too. And VGFC, I'll take a look at as well, and then I'll go. But yeah, these guys right here, I started a small position, just shares. I bought like 1,000 shares, and because they, their warrants are sitting here at $11. They do have an ATM, which is the only thing I'm a little bit worried about, but they do have enough cash right now. So I figured, this is one where the news of the deal could send it a little bit higher if we have a soft day in the market, and I was just going to sell out for like 10-15% gain and call it a day on this one. So I think one of you guys called it out in the Discord, and I started a small position on it because I looked at it and it looked like it was okay. All right. EVGO. Yeah, they don't have any information on this one here. Let's take a look at. All right, same thing, same boats. About 70 million shares outstanding. Shorts, roughly about 30% of it's shorted. They're saying 32. They're saying about 32, so that's pretty close. It's good when the numbers match. Yeah, this one's one of those that as it gets pushed down with the rest of the market, it's just been bleeding. The question is support going to be... So they're hitting all-time low. Shorts have a pretty good size short position against it. It's over 100 million. They look like they have covered a bit of it, just if we're believing those numbers. But yeah, it's got a high squeeze score, and it looks like it's hitting all-time lows. So therefore, there's going to be a bottom at some point. They still have, let's see, do we know anything about their cash position? How are they doing on cash? Cash position, still have 300 million in cash and restricted cash. How are their liabilities? Good amount of goodwill still. So the question is, where are the warts on this one, right? Just show low on the RSI and the daily. Yeah. Do you know what it's looking like on the weekly? But yeah, this one would be a possible bottom play where you can see a bounce, because we're hitting all-time lows, just on, if we were just to go off the balance sheet right here, and let's take out some of the goodwill and stuff like that and just reduce it down to like their current assets. So 322 million, we'll just round up and say 323 million. Their market cap right now is 339 million. So they're kind of priced right where they should be as far as like, that's what the market's value them at, right? So if we look here, 332, 339. So they're right around their current assets. If this keeps dropping, it's about to cross on the weekly. Yeah, my guess would be as soon as it crosses over on the weekly, you should probably see a bounce on this particular one. But they're being priced out right now according to their current assets. They're not including any of this goodwill or any of this stuff. They're basically just pricing this stock directly for what it's showing that they have in current assets, which is your cash, your accounts receivable, your prepaid, all that stuff. So there you go. So yeah, I would say this is probably a decent spot to start. You could say, if it goes below this number right here, 322 million, that's probably a smart buy because you're at least buying it for what they have in current assets. So yeah, that one looks like a decent like bottom play to try to see if you can grab there. There's still a gap up here that did get filled here, but it looks like this filled there. So there is a small gap here in the 4s. If you wanted to go short term, it looks like there's been a... No, they filled that. Sorry. So I don't see any gaps immediately on this thing because technically this day covered this gap there. Let's just see. Is there any gaps higher? Did anything ever? Yeah, that day touched it. This day touched there. So, and this gap filled already. So, look, I don't see any huge gaps. When's their next earnings? Do you know? We can look it up if not. But yeah, buying at current assets would be probably what I would do. Is if this continues to keep dropping, it's going to bounce at some point. You can see here it was pushing down, hitting that low, and it ran back up. Same thing here. It'll be pushing down low. It's making lower lows. So it's not reversed in the trend yet. It's still continuing along this trend, but I just want to throw it out there that it does look like you're getting close to basically the bottom on this thing, because once you get to current assets and below, then you're starting to push it with shorting it past that. Okay. And then the last one was VGFC. Public warrants were at 222. So they can still dilute, right? Or maybe they already been diluting. Let's see. Okay, so warrants. They've already taken some money. So they've already, it looks like they exercised some warrants already. That's what it looks like, at least. Because they're taking in cash from it. So which might explain the price right now. But we would see on the next filing, Infinite, you need to take a look and see the next time they file, take a look what their shares outstanding is. Then you could see if they diluted any and exercised some of that stuff out. All right, last one we're going to do VGFC, very good food company. All right, so the short interest on this is pretty low. The float is actually pretty big. They only have a $11 11 million market cap. They need cash. And they've got warrants at 235. Very good food company. They're probably a reverse split candidate, is what I could tell you. No, they've been on since November, so they're probably having to work out either a reverse split or something's gonna need to happen on this because they're out of cash, and so they're either gonna have to make a warrant run on this thing, and the underwriters on this push the stock price up so they can get out. But they've got May warrants through Armistice, out of all people. They still have a little bit left on their shelf. Looks like another 5 million. But they've been diluting, so that's what's going on with this particular brand. But it looks like they need to raise more cash. So I don't particularly like this one as much. I'm not saying it can't go up, but like the short interest on it's pretty low now. And that means that most shorts close their positions. So could it get pushed up for, a warrant run? Sure. But I don't think as soon as it goes over that little area, it's going to go down again. So, and how much money will they raise? Not that much. So I don't particularly like this one. I like EVGO better than this VG, very good food company. I'm going to take a look at one more. Loan Depot, I took a look at this one the other day. It's got a small float, but they also have a decent amount of cash already. The only thing I don't like is the chairman is kind of flashy, and he has been selling stock, and so doesn't give me like the still pretty low short interest. They have cash enough to last a while, so interesting. Yeah, I saw that on the EVGO warrants. Short squeeze on it. I don't know. I'm just taking a look at different things. I still like MTB as well. MTB is M&T Bank. I found them on a scanner that I was running, and they're a pretty safe company. So if you get stuck, it's not like the end of the world. They're still a profitable company. It's not like these small caps that we deal with on a daily basis where it's like, oh, well, something's going to happen. The other shoe's going to drop at some point. So, but I think they're oversold as well. So that's one that I would take a look at. Personally, for me, I started a position. I'd like it to drop more before I really go in on them, but their earnings are coming up on January 19th, and so if that does play out, they're already oversold on the daily, so on the weekly, we'll see what happens. Just went through the filing. Infinite, are you on the Discord as well? I don't know everyone's like YouTube name versus their like their Discord name. Infinite, if you want to DM me anything that you're going through and you want me to take a look at with you, I'm happy to do that. And if you want to, we can, break it down inside the Discord, kind of share all the filings. I'll print out all these, a screenshot, all these things that I've tools to, and we can kind of take a look at it, because I do think that one does look better than a lot of the ones that were called out. So if you're able to DM me on, let's see, MTV, look this ticker up. Nope, nothing there. Was that supposed to be a joke? I want my MTV. Not to date myself. All right. So, Infinite, if you are listening to this, hopefully you can DM me on the Discord. If you don't know our Discord, I'll link it right now. And anyone's more than welcome to join us. It's a free Discord. We all just talk about stocks, and you can always DM me or at me on there, and we'll kind of go through some whatever you're wanting to look at. Okay, copying it. I'll paste it here. Anyone's more than welcome to join. So you guys have a great evening, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. All right, see you.